happiness isn't just an emotion, but a state of mind. Welcome to Finding Your Happiness with your host, John Polish and Nickel Lohman. For the next 60 minutes, we'll be taking a look at happiness from a whole new perspective, both personally and professionally. The phone lines are open at 702-483-4444. That's 702-483-4444. Now, let's get happy and bring on the hosts. Here's John and Nickel.
Welcome. I'm John Polish with my co-host Nickel Lohman, and this is our first show of 2015. And today we're going to be talking about a lot about personalities and just people and relationships in general, and how we can improve those personally and professionally. And later on, we have a very special guest with us, the ambassador of happiness, which we'll explain what that means later on the show. But before we get started, being the first show of the new year, I kind of want to get into the habit of talking about praise, like giving thanks for what we have. Part of being happier and finding happiness is the ability to accept happiness as well. And sometimes I'm not so good at that, accepting the positive. So, Nickel, give us a little rundown of some of the good in your life right now.
Well, hi, everybody. You know, one of the good things that happened this week, and I'm going to focus specifically on this week with it being the new year, is I stepped out of my comfort zone quite a bit. And for some people that know me, they'll say, oh, that's not out of her comfort zone. But I'm going to tell you, it was really out of my comfort zone. So I was asked to be a part of a video shoot on the Strip this week. And we had some friends that were doing some magic, and I was an extra in their video. And I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of cool. And, you know, they were stopping people and doing their best to get people to, you know, be recorded live on their video.
That sounds fun. I'd love to do that.
I think you were there. So that was a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But later in the week, we actually did something, and we did a video scavenger hunt, actually celebrating John's birthday. And in that video scavenger hunt, I stepped out of my comfort zone and just randomly stopped people on the Las Vegas Strip and asked them about the things that made them happy. And my success rate of getting people to actually stop and talk to me was far greater than I had expected. And so I had a really full heart of gratitude and love because people just wanted to stop and talk and share about happiness. And that really impressed me, and it really helped fill my bucket and put some excitement back into there are happy people out there. It's sometimes just a matter of asking somebody what makes them happy rather than asking somebody what's going on in your life or how was your day, because you might actually hear how somebody's day was versus what makes somebody happy. So that really filled my love bucket this week.
That's cool. It was fun. We actually had a couple different groups going out and competing, and I just kind of bounced in between. So it was a good time, and I was pretty amazed at some of the stuff you were willing to do, just stopping strangers and asking them to do stuff. I couldn't do a lot of that.
Yeah, there was a random organ fan that was quite surprised.
We're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to leave the O word out of here. Unless we're talking about duck hunting. You want to talk about that? We can, but...
Nope, I'd much rather talk about the Buckeyes.
Okay, good girl.
Go Buckeyes!
So for myself, I'm going to take a little bit longer here. This is one of the things that I sometimes struggle with, in that I tend to have that driven, go-get-'em personality that's kind of, I've been referred to as a dog on a bone, don't stop. And I tend to be very hard on myself. So nothing's good. Even if it's great, it can be better. And I realized in the past week that sometimes not giving myself credit is actually hurting some of the people that are coming alongside me and they're doing it with me or helping me. So I realized that sometimes giving myself a little bit of credit in some things is actually, it's not a humility thing. It's actually helping other people. So I just want to take a minute and kind of recap my 2014. If we're talking about finding happiness, and all the finding happiness stuff is based off of the personal happiness graph, which is 5 categories. So I'm just going to run down my life in those 5 categories real quick, if you don't mind.
I would love to hear about that. Sounds like that's a big aha moment. So thanks for sharing.
It is for me, and it's just proof that this graphing system that we've come up with is something that is unique, but it really helps you put life into different perspectives. So I'm going to skip the first part. I'm going to go to the R for responsibilities. And in the past year, I have finished writing my second book. I have began my public speaking career, doing seminars, workshops, now a radio talk show host on top of other things. So I couldn't be happier as far as my responsibilities go right now. I'm pretty good right there. It feels really good.
That's a lot of big things to happen in one year.
It is. It's pretty cool. My activities level have increased because of all the things I'm doing professionally, but also the people I've met personally. I'm actually getting out and doing more than I have recently, so I've seen an increase or a narrowing of that gap, if you will, in the activities as well.
That's awesome.
As far as money goes, financially, bills are paid, needs are met, no complaints.
That's always good.
And as far as my environment goes, obviously there's still some work to be done in my environment. But one thing I realized, I've been in Vegas for like 18 years now, and kind of been take it or leave it as far as whether or not I stay in Vegas. But at this point in time, moving into the career that I'm moving into, I really couldn't be in a better place than Las Vegas. There are some incredible resources here and some great people that have mentored me and helped me along the way. So I'm really happy with my environment at that stage. And then finally, the first part of it is people. And when it comes to people, this is the area I've always struggled in the most. I've always been more of an introvert, kind of shy, just not really put myself out there. And it's always been the area that I've kind of had a decent gap in. And in the last year, it has been just amazing. And I got to give credit to people that I've met through the National Speakers Association, Toastmasters, International, my meetup groups, and especially people that I have become friends with through the Crossings Church. I've met so many incredible people, and they're really, really cool. A lot of on-top business people, great-looking bunch of people. I mean, I'm really blessed in those areas. So as you can see, looking at just the way we do, I know you can't see a graph on the radio, I get that, but if you could see how that works, the line between what I want and what I have has narrowed greatly in the past year. And so I just needed to take a minute to say that and to say thank you to all those people that helped make that happen. So
that's awesome. And I think, people are they play such a big role in our lives and in our happiness. And that's pretty sweet that you've been able to hit those things this year.
The people category is interesting. I listened to the street interviews that you did and that the other group did. And one of the questions was, what makes you happy? And almost every single time it was people. Oh, it's my family, it's my friends, it's my children, it's this. It was always people. So people seem to be the one area that, this is what really makes me happy. But I've been doing this personal happiness graph with people for over 20 years now. And I can tell you, the biggest gap between what we want and what we have is also in people. So I think people are saying, this is what makes me happy, but a lot of times they just don't have it. And I can kind of see on the faces of some of those people that you interviewed, you're like, yeah, this makes me happy, but it's not too good right now.
Yeah, some people, it actually took them a little bit of time where they had to pause and think, what really does make them happy? And that made me question a little bit internally. I didn't, bust them out on video or anything about what actually made them happy, but it did make me question, are they really a happy person? Or is there happiness going on in their life?
I think there's an understanding that people is the common answer. That's what you should say. And I've even, in the book, I kind of wrote that, as far as rating the importance, everybody wants to put people and relationships at a 10. And I think that for some reason, they think if they list it as anything less than a 10 of importance, that means there's some evil person that doesn't care about others. And in reality, that isn't exactly true. We're not always thinking about people and relationships in our lives. Sometimes it's more than others. But I do notice a huge gap and a huge disconnect in the area of relationships. And sometimes it's personal relationships, dating relationships, it could be business relationships, whatever it is. There's a definite difference between what we want and what we have, more often than not in the area of people.
That makes sense. I have to say, today there was a little bit of a shakeup in the people in my world, and I definitely realized how it affected me. And I got to make a choice. Am I going to let this affect me? Or am I going to find some happiness regardless of these relationships or these specific people?
And we have to decide sometimes. Sometimes relationships are forced upon us. Sometimes they just, whether it's coworkers or, people that are just in our lives that are going to be in our lives no matter what, and we kind of have to deal with it and make the best of it. Or, sometimes those difficult people are in our lives for a reason, whether it's to grow us or that we need to be there for them in some way, but they're there. And either way we grow from it. We can't not everything's going to be perfect all the time. We have to find a way to deal with that. And putting it in perspective is definitely the way to do that. So.
That's awesome. I like to say for a season or for a reason.
This is true. I've heard that many times myself. And we are going to talk a little bit about different strategies that we can use to help with those relationships today. And, obviously some of those are related to what we do in our seminars with the graph and that. But one of the things that I think is interesting, and I'll just throw this out real quick before we go. We're going to get a break in a couple of minutes, but some of the things I want to talk about when we come back from the break. So we're going to talk about our circles of influence. And yes, I said circles because that's something that's important, that we don't just have one group of influence, that we have an impact on a larger group of people. And we're going to look at that very briefly. I also want to talk about, I'm sure you're familiar with the book, The 5 Love Languages.
I enjoyed that book. Yes.
I'm not going to say I enjoyed that book, but I'm familiar with it and I understand its importance and significance. And I've actually been working on translating, not necessarily translating that, but something similar for the business world as far as motivations, that there are different things that motivate people. And so we'll look a little bit about that, but I want to spend most of our time today after we talk to our ambassador that's coming up.
Woo woo.
Most of our time is going to be on personalities and personality types. So I think that can really help us with our relationships. So we will be back with that, and we will definitely be back with the ambassador of happiness, Mary Elizabeth Tracy, in just a moment.
When you started your business, did you realize that you not only had to be good at what you do, but you would have to become a social media guru, a website developer, and a master of database management? It takes a lot to run a successful business, and no one can do it alone. Fortunately, you have Nickel to help you leverage your social media, database, and website to grow your business. Keep in contact with everyone you meet and turn strangers into clients.
Chalk it up to Nickel at chalkitup2.com. chalkitup2.com.
Do you own or manage a business? When was the last time your business had a checkup? It's recommended that we get regular checkups to make sure that our bodies are healthy. Early diagnosis makes it possible to provide treatment before a disease has a chance to grow and spread. There is no better time to get a healthier, happier business checkup. We help organizations look at their operation from a whole new perspective. Our checkups help diagnose potential problems in your business before they have a chance to spread. And our prescriptions are easy to implement and cost-effective. Side effects may include increased customer satisfaction, employee retention, and productivity. You may experience an increase in profits and a happier work environment. Call now for a free initial consultation at 702-561-1088 or visit us online at healthierhappierbusiness.com. Once again, that's 702-561-1088.
Do you ever wonder what makes people happy? Does it feel like there is something missing? Do you find yourself asking, why me? Or when is it going to be my turn? At Finding Your Happiness Workshops, we help people look at life from a new perspective. We do not have to let our circumstances dictate our happiness any longer. Finding Your Happiness Workshops are fun, action-packed, and full of real-life practical strategies to help you start living a happier, more fulfilling life today.
Find out more at findingyourhappiness.org. findingyourhappiness.org.
For your next event, you could hire a celebrity or a cheesy entertainer. But why not hire someone who understands what it's like to face adversity and has a unique ability to move people into action? John Polish is an internationally recognized author, an award-winning humorous motivational speaker, and a successful football coach. So if you're looking for a healthier, happier organization, John Polish is the one you need to call to deliver the motivational pregame speech you need and direct you to implement your winning game plan. To book your next event, call 702-561-1088 or visit johnpolish.com.
Now, let's return to Finding Your Happiness. The phone lines are open at 702-483-4444. Now, here again, John and Nicole.
Welcome back to the Finding Your Happiness Show. I'm Nicole, here with John Polish, and we have a special guest in the studio today with Mary Elizabeth Tracy.
So typically on this show, when we first started the show, the idea was to find local business people who we can interview to find out what they're doing to make their employees and their customers happier. And so we had this kind of target of going after business people. But I got to tell you, this next person, when we met her recently, and pretty much the only reason she's on this show right now is because of her introduction. When I met this woman, it was like literally right after we had signed to do this show. And we go to a party, and there she was. And the first words out of her mouth before she knew what we did at all, she's like, "Hi, I'm Mary, the happiness ambassador."
Did I say that?
You did.
You did.
And
With a big smile.
Actually, it was the ambassador of happiness is the way you worded it. And I thought, okay, I have no idea who you are or what you do, but you're coming on the show. Anybody that would lead with that, we have got to have on. So help me. What in the world does that mean?
John, I don't even have to strive or work at being happy anymore. I've practiced it for so long. But I just feel like everybody has an opportunity in their life to find their happiness and stay in their happiness. And that's kind of what I've chosen to do. People say, "What do you do for fun?" Well, everything I do is fun. So it's just the way that my life is now. I give credit to God because I just trust God Almighty for everything in my life. And that takes a lot of pressure off of me to be able to know that He's in control of everything. So it allows me to be happy.
So have you always been like this? Is this new?
My family says I was a happy little kid, but then I think in my teen years and probably in my 20 years and 30 years and 40 years, I kind of was not in sync with who I really was or with who God really was. And so once I got into this close relationship with God and really sought to maintain the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperament, that's when it changed for me. And now I just have a deep abiding peace, and I'm just always happy.
So one of the questions that we ask quite often is, who taught you how to be happy?
I have been blessed with a lot of really great teachers. I started in my early 20s. I worked at a farmer's co-op, and a gentleman walked in the store and he threw a cassette tape on the counter and said, "I think you'll like this guy." And the guy was Zig Ziglar. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Of course.
So my kids were raised on Zig Ziglar. They thought it was their uncle. And from there, I went to Brian Tracy and Tony Robbins. And I've always been very conscientious about letting good things in my mind. So people might say, "What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite television show? What are your favorite performers or songs on the radio?" And I don't listen to it. Normally, I just listen to anything that's going to be beneficial to me.
And so you found that the happiness coaching or seminars, that kind of stuff has been good for you?
Oh, it's been very good for me. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think anyone would benefit from that. And then when you add the God factor in with the motivational part, the positive mental attitude, then you're just unstoppable.
It's interesting because when I first developed the personal happiness graph like 20 some years ago, one of the first things that I was confronted with was the God question. Like, you don't have a God category. How do you put God into it? And I put it away for a while because it was kind of new to all of that, and I didn't want to be offensive. And when I brought it back out, I realized that I had it right the first time, that there isn't a such thing as a God category, that should be what drives your desires in all your categories. So that's something that I'm still striving to do, but that's a huge part of the workshops and stuff that we do here as well. But on a personal level, like, is there somebody in your life that modeled it for you? Like, Did you ever have somebody say, like, in order to be happy, do this, as far as family or relationships?
Well, my mama was always a happy person, and my brothers and sisters. I'm so blessed with such a wonderful family. But my mom was a very strong woman. She became a widow with 9 children. The youngest was a month old. Wow. Yeah, it was very challenging. And before her husband died of cancer, he was sick at home for a long time. And the preacher came and visited her family and visited the dad. And the dad asked the preacher to look out for his wife and children. So he preached the funeral, and then he'd check on the wife and children, and then he married the wife. And so that was my dad was the preacher of the funeral, and my mom was the widow. And so they had me and my little sister, and we've just had this lovely, beautiful family. We're just so blessed.
It's awesome what hardship will turn into sometimes.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
It is. It's pretty cool. Along those lines, we're going to talk a little bit about personalities and stuff coming up, but that appearance of happy, that bubbly, outgoing personality that everybody associates with happiness, I have found isn't always very accurate. Especially when you get into some of the more driven personalities, you could be completely happy without walking around like a cheerleader. And by the same token, we see other people, Robin Williams comes to mind. Look outwardly the most happy person, and then does what he does.
Very tortured, yeah.
How do you feel like? Do you feel like you're able to spot somebody that's happy right away, or is this something that you find your own persona?
Well, I try to be very accepting of people exactly as they are, wherever they are in their life. And it's not, to me, it's not their responsibility to me to be anything other than what they are. I just have a drive within me to try to always add value to any relationship I'm in and to bring a higher energy to wherever I am. And by that, I mean, when I walk into a room, I want people to be glad I'm there. I don't want them to be glad when I leave.
That's good.
Well, one of the things you said when you first introduced yourself was that you practice happiness. Tell me a little bit more about that, because you don't often hear somebody say that.
I don't know exactly what I meant when I said that, except that in every situation you get to choose whether or not you're going to be happy. So maybe that's what I meant by that.
Awesome.
Or practice like I just do it.
I agree with that. And, sometimes it is about making that choice. I have to say, I, at one point in my life, had braces, and I was really embarrassed by my teeth. And so I wouldn't smile because I didn't like my smile. And it took some time after I got those braces off to practice smiling again. And people always said, "Oh, you're so serious. You're grumpy. You're mad." Nope, just serious, driven. And it's new to me to have a pretty smile. It's something that I'm proud of.
And it is beautiful. You have a beautiful smile.
I like showing it off now.
But you tend to be a little bit more like me in that driven kind of personality where sometimes I know that, like, working with you, I know that you're happy, but I see that, like, really concentrated look on your face. Whereas if I just looked at you, and I get it all the time too. Some people are like, you write and talk about happiness, you don't look it. But I don't, it's not a matter, to me, it's not looking the part. It's really a matter of being comfortable in your own skin and being able to deal with all the circumstances that life throws at us, because it could throw a lot.
Right.
Definitely. And at the same time, people don't know about our happiness unless we have an outward expression of that sometimes.
That's exactly right.
And some of the personality profiles that I've taken actually rate me as gregarious, and I can be. And it's just not always something that's outwardly shown.
One of the things that we found interesting, the party that we met Mary at was filled with a bunch of motivational speakers. And as we're at the party, we kind of noticed that there's quite a buzz in the room, and a lot of people were pretty happy. And every once in a while, you look off in the corner, and there's somebody like by themselves. And it didn't take long to realize it was mostly the administrators and social media people that were happy, and a lot of the speakers are more introverted and by themselves.
Right. I'm introverted as well. So even before going to the party, I have to have this internal wrestling match with myself to go out, and it's a scary situation for me.
And as an extrovert, I'm always looking for somebody to bring into a conversation
Yeah.
to have a good time with.
And it was funny too, at the same time that party led to like singing and entertainment, and it was almost like a shift. All of a sudden the introverts moved to the front and everybody else moved to the back.
That's
It's like,
exactly right.
now it's time to perform, you know.
You give us a microphone, we're ready.
So in that particular case, I don't think there was any way to identify who's happy and who's not.
Right.
Real quick, before we go to our next break, I'm going to touch on the idea of the circle of influence. And in our workshops, I've done what I called the circles of influence. And I took out some Frisbees and I'd write each one on. And I had one for family, one for friends, one for coworkers, one for church people. And I had all these different circles. And the idea behind that is to say that we have a circle of influence almost implies that we have the same influence on everybody in our circle.
Interesting.
And I find it very interesting that, like, some of the things that I do, certain people that know me in certain situations would never look at me and go, oh, that's how I would define you. Like, people that I work with in my day job think it's hysterical that I talk about happiness because I have to wake up at 5 a.m. and I don't always look so happy. You know?
Not such a morning person, are you?
Right, I know. And it's just different, totally different circles of influence, and you have a whole different impact on it. So I've taken that and kind of outlined exactly what that looks like in each circle. So we're not sitting there. One of the things that, especially if you've ever done any kind of sales job or multi-level marketing, they're like, write down everybody you know and call them. Well, not everybody I know is receptive to that because they don't all know me that way. So I really have to work on who knows me in what scenario. When I first started speaking, I thought, well, okay, I'm a teacher and a coach, and I don't want to put all this stuff all over social media. And it was explained to me that it wouldn't take long before more people recognized me as an author and speaker than as a teacher and coach. And it's only been a year and that's happening already. It's been a really cool buzz. And it's just a matter of working each of those circles and developing them separately rather than trying to do it all at once.
Well, I'd say that's definitely looking at things from a different perspective as well. It's not until somebody points something out sometimes that we realize that we have an opportunity to make a choice or to grow or to share something a little bit differently. How would somebody know that that's what we do for a living unless we told them or somebody else told them or it shows outwardly based on a uniform or something else? So it's a neat look at it.
We kind of get to be different, like take on different roles at times. So, you know, we don't always have to be the same personality. Sometimes you can get in a more comfortable, relaxed environment. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we come back. We'll also talk about some different motivations, and we'll get into personalities when we come back from this break.
When you started your business, did you realize that you not only had to be good at what you do, but you would have to become a social media guru, a website developer, and a master of database management? It takes a lot to run a successful business, and no one can do it alone. Fortunately, you have Nickel to help you leverage your social media, database, and website to grow your business. Keep in contact with everyone you meet and turn strangers into clients.
Chalk it up to Nickel at chalkitup2.com. chalkitup2.com.
For your next event, you could hire a celebrity or a cheesy entertainer. But why not hire someone who understands what it's like to face adversity and has a unique ability to move people into action? John Polish is an internationally recognized author, an award-winning humorous motivational speaker, and a successful football coach. So if you're looking for a healthier, happier organization, John Polish is the one you need to call to deliver the motivational pregame speech you need and direct you to implement your winning game plan. To book your next event, call 702-561-1088 or visit johnpolish.com.
Do you ever wonder what makes people happy? Does it feel like there is something missing? Do you find yourself asking, why me? Or when is it going to be my turn? At Finding Your Happiness Workshops, we help people look at life from a new perspective. We do not have to let our circumstances dictate our happiness any longer. Finding Your Happiness Workshops are fun, action-packed, and full of real-life practical strategies to help you start living a happier, more fulfilling life today.
Find out more at findingyourhappiness.org. Findingyourhappiness.org.
Do you own or manage a business? When was the last time your business had a checkup? It's recommended that we get regular checkups to make sure that our bodies are healthy. Early diagnosis makes it possible to provide treatment before a disease has a chance to grow and spread. There is no better time to get a healthier, happier business checkup. We help organizations look at their operation from a whole new perspective. Our checkups help diagnose potential problems in your business before they have a chance to spread. And our prescriptions are easy to implement and cost-effective. Side effects may include increased customer satisfaction, employee retention, and productivity. You may experience an increase in profits and a happier work environment. Call now for a free initial consultation at 702-561-1088 or visit us online at healthierhappierbusiness.com. Once again, that's 702-561-1088.
Finding Your Happiness continues. Join the conversation at 702-483-4444. Now, here again, John and Nicole.
Welcome back to the Finding Your Happiness show. I'm Nicole. I'm here with John and Mary Elizabeth Tracy. We're talking a little bit about people, relationships, circles of influence, motivators, and personality styles.
Yeah, so we talked about circles of influence and how you might want to look at those a little bit differently. And, that's something that we delve into quite a bit at the workshops. The next thing that I want to talk about that could help in our relationships is something that I, as a typical guy, would never have thought to bring into the conversation. Never. I actually did the course when I was married, and I suffered through it. But we actually had a speaker at our workshop last time who brought in the 5 love languages. And in my first response is, oh, great. It's going to be we're going to turn this into a chick flick kind of thing.
Lovey-dovey. Aww.
Right. So these 5 love languages, I really didn't think anything of it. But as I started thinking about it, we really do, and not even necessarily love, but we receive sort of respect and stuff different ways. And, well, Nicole, I'm going to defer to you a little bit. You want to explain what they are, and we're not going to spend too much time selling this thing, but I think it's worthy to mention because it is something that we do in the workshops that we talk about. So,
well, I think that you get to look at the word love language and say, love. A lot of people have a hard time with that word because it's not just about loving people, but it's about loving yourself and understanding who you are. And so in the book by the Christian author, he talks about 5 different languages. There's touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, and gifts. And what that means is we show love in certain ways and we receive love in certain ways. And have you ever bought somebody a gift to realize that they could care less about what you actually gave them, to find out that they would much rather sit there and have coffee or dinner with you and have some quality time with you rather than actually receiving a gift?
Yeah, you mentioned my birthday this weekend, and there were a few people that brought cards or gift cards to me, and I felt uncomfortable. Like, to me, I would rather just have them there hanging out. The actual receiving a gift is difficult.
And so one of your love languages might be then quality time.
Definitely.
Right?
Right.
Now, the way we show love sometimes is different than how we like to receive love. I'm going to tell you that my love language is quality time. I'd much rather spend time with you than give you anything, buy you anything, or receive something myself. But one of the ways that I show love is through acts of service. I would love to cook for you. I like to do things on
plumbing.
No, I am
inside
not a
joke.
Call in now.
Different ways to show people, different things that you can do for them. When somebody asked me before I had read the book what my love language was, I'm thinking, well, touch. I love massage. And it was actually a boss, and he's like, well, I really can't touch you. And I'm like, nope, you can't, shouldn't. And so what he did was he actually bought me a massage certificate.
Oh, how nice.
And I was like, wow, how awesome is that? That from a business perspective, my boss asked me, how did I want him to show his appreciation for me?
That's so nice.
And I have a good friend that's probably listening right now that is saying that you're crazy and no woman has the gift of touch as a love language, but that's beside the point.
That's mine.
Is it?
Physical touch.
You just took this recently, didn't you?
I did, night before last. I went out with a friend from church, and she and I were talking about the 5 love languages. So I thought, I'll check that out. And I just went online and took the little test. I didn't read the entire book. Yeah. I read it years ago, but mainly with a perspective of my daughters to kind of communicate.
It's awesome when you can incorporate the languages of your children and your spouse, your friends, your coworkers, and understand that you just need to connect with somebody a little bit differently sometimes based on how they like to receive.
And when I first heard this whole idea of, I've heard of the love languages obviously before, but the first time I heard it mentioned in applying it to the finding your happiness stuff, I kind of cringed, I guess, being a typical guy. But then I thought about, it's actually a communication style.
Exactly.
And it's really not about mine. It's about understanding yours. And it's, as a football coach and a business owner, motivating people is important. And what I'm finding nowadays is you can't motivate everybody the same way like you used to be able to. Back when I was in high school playing football, the coach could sit there and scream at you, and you're going to get up and you're going to work even harder so you don't get yelled at. You had that fear as a motivator. And that just does not work anymore. It works for a small percentage of people. And that's when we're going to talk briefly about personalities. There's certain people that respond to that, but a lot of people do not respond to that anymore. And there's different. So what I've been working on, and I haven't quite completed it yet, but I'm actually working on taking something very similar to the love languages and applying it to the different types of motivations and understanding which personalities can be motivated a certain way.
Interesting.
So it's no longer can I yell at my team and be like, all right, let's go, get back in the line. Now it's almost like you got to go to each one of them individually and pat this one on the, hey, you can do it. I believe in you. Or, there's totally different motivations out there. And if you're running a business specifically, the last thing you want to do to your staff is bring them together and say, I want to talk to you about love languages. It's just not going to work.
Nope. But if you find out that maybe they're a person of affirmation that, needs to know it that way, then you can make sure that you speak to them and congratulate them, tell them they're doing a good job, and maybe even do it in front of other people.
Well, that's where awards and recognitions for your job are going to be handy for those people. Sometimes the touch people just need a high five at work and they're good.
Right. And some people don't want that at all.
Right. But if you're a person that's touched, then anything, a little pat on the back as you walk by, or hey, what's up? Sometimes it's amazing. Even as a teacher, I'll notice how many kids will walk out of their way just to give you a fist bump in the hallway because they need that touch. And at first I'm like, I don't need that, but they need it. They need that touch. And I'm realizing that a lot of people are like that. Sometimes acts of service. You're going to find employees out there that want to help you. And a lot of people might think, oh, they're just kissing up, but they're not. That is their way of contributing to whatever your cause is. And the biggest thing that I find in business is that the greatest motivator out there is one we've gotten away from a lot. And I think back in like the 70s and 80s, kind of growing up and watching our country I grew up in Ohio, the, heartbeat of America, manufacturing capital, right? And one of the things I noticed back then is that everybody seemed to have great pride in their work. Like the term American made really meant something. Like people were really excited. It didn't matter what job you had, you contributed. And we've lost that a lot. And one of the reasons we've lost it is because I think as managers and bosses in general, we have lost that idea that we're supposed to make everybody feel like they're part of it. Instead, you have this job to do your job, and you're replaceable. But in reality, everybody contributes to the greater good. And I think that motivation, that sense of belonging, is one of the biggest motivations that we're lacking in business.
I think it's huge. And, I think part of the shift from the 70s and 80s, as you're speaking about it, is as far as the human resources. We had to put some rules in place because there was too much touching going on or the wrong kind of interaction. Comments were made and, words of affirmation weren't always positive. And so I think it's definitely about finding that and bringing that back to the business world and understanding who your employees are, who your people are.
Yeah. So this is going to be a big part of the Healthier, Happier Business workshops that we're going to be doing, is really tuning in on these different motivations. The quality time sometimes means that they want to have a happy hour, an outing where they can get together with coworkers. People want to feel connected and involved. So that's going to be huge. And I've got it mostly done. I haven't really had time to put it in book format yet, but I think that'll probably be the next book coming up in the year, is all about the motivations. But I also find it very closely connected to these ideas of different personality styles. And there's a lot of different personality style tests out there. There's the discs, the colors, all kinds of different ones. But I think my favorite is just the simplest, easy, the Dr. Gary Smalley's animal test.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's the lion, otter, beaver, and retriever. And he links each personality up to that kind of animal. And it's a test that I went through, kind of early on in my marriage, and helped me. It really helps to look at the other person and gives you an idea of what you're strong at and what you're weak at. And also what motivates a little bit with each one.
And I think once we know what our strengths are and our weaknesses are, and then we can identify what other people's strengths and weaknesses are, we can work towards coming together and filling those gaps, like within the happiness graph.
So before we even get into that, let's just kind of take a minute and talk about what that means in our personal lives. I can tell you, for example, that I've had, even in my dealings with Nickel here preparing the show, I have that driven, push forward, decision-making personality that has a tendency to also be a little overbearing and controlling. But that's not the intent. Sometimes in my mind, it's like, I am focused on the goal and let's get to the goal, and whatever you have to say, if it helps, great. If it's not, I didn't hear you.
Right.
And I know this is sometimes people feel like they're a little bit bulldozed by that, but that's never the intent. It's just that personality coming out. And I have to put myself in check and go, okay, I realize that you might be thinking that I'm doing this to you right now, and we have to back up a little bit.
Well, I'm sorry. I think we do have a responsibility to learn some communication styles that don't let people feel like they're being railroaded. And we need to, I think that comes from humility, first of all, that our way is not always the best way, although I would say for me, 99% of the time, it is the best way. But
the ambassador.
But we just need to learn how to effectively communicate so that people are not insulted or put off.
And knowing that about yourself and what you are allows you to understand how to correct yourself. But it's also equally important, if not even more important, to be able to recognize in other people. Because I can't stop you and say, oh, hi, Mary, it's nice to meet you. Would you take this personality test so I know how to talk to you? That doesn't work. So,
well, and that's funny, John, because when you were describing the different personalities, I had never taken that particular profile. And you asked me what I think I am. And I'm like, well, I'm very similar to how you are in that lion personality. And you're like, no, you're showing up as a golden retriever. And I'm like, well, I think part of it is also learning to flex when you are in different relationships, because there are certain times for certain things to come out. And there are other times for, where somebody else gets to take that lead. And that's one thing I've learned quite a bit in learning more about myself and finding my own happiness is there's a time to lead, there's a time to follow. And
no, you're wrong. You're just going to follow. You're completely wrong. Just do it my way.
Here, take this test.
Take the test and see how you did. I'm just kidding, of course. Obviously, helping to understand other people's is really what's most important. And we have one more segment left, and we'll talk a lot more about that coming up after these breaks.
When you started your business, did you realize that you not only had to be good at what you do, but you would have to become a social media guru, a website developer, and a master of database management? It takes a lot to run a successful business, and no one can do it alone. Fortunately, you have Nickel to help you leverage your social media, database, and website to grow your business. Keep in contact with everyone you meet and turn strangers into clients.
Chalk it up to Nickel at chalkitup2.com. chalkitup2.com.
Do you ever wonder what makes people happy? Does it feel like there is something missing? Do you find yourself asking, why me? Or when is it going to be my turn? At Finding Your Happiness Workshops, we help people look at life from a new perspective. We do not have to let our circumstances dictate our happiness any longer. Finding Your Happiness Workshops are fun, action-packed, and full of real-life practical strategies to help you start living a happier, more fulfilling life today.
Find out more at findingyourhappiness.org. findingyourhappiness.org.
Do you own or manage a business? When was the last time your business had a checkup? It's recommended that we get regular checkups to make sure that our bodies are healthy. Early diagnosis makes it possible to provide treatment before a disease has a chance to grow and spread. There is no better time to get a healthier, happier business checkup. We help organizations look at their operation from a whole new perspective. Our checkups help diagnose potential problems in your business before they have a chance to spread. And our prescriptions are easy to implement and cost-effective. Side effects may include increased customer satisfaction, employee retention, and productivity. You may experience an increase in profits and a happier work environment. Call now for a free initial consultation at 702-561-1088 or visit us online at healthierhappierbusiness.com. Once again, that's 702-561-1088.
For your next event, you could hire a celebrity or a cheesy entertainer. But why not hire someone who understands what it's like to face adversity and has a unique ability to move people into action? John Polish is an internationally recognized author, an award-winning humorous motivational speaker, and a successful football coach. So if you're looking for a healthier, happier organization, John Polish is the one you need to call to deliver the motivational pregame speech you need and direct you to implement your winning game plan. To book your next event, call 702-561-1088 or visit johnpolish.com.
Now, let's return to Finding Your Happiness. The phone lines are open at 702-483-4444. Now, here again, John and Nickel.
Welcome back to the Finding Your Happiness show.
So we've been talking a lot about communication styles and personality styles, and we're kind of didn't have enough time to get into them as much as I wanted to because this has just been a great conversation.
Yeah, but the good news about that, we have seminars.
We have plenty of time. We have seminars. We have more radio shows.
What a great way to slip in a commercial.
We have plenty of time to do whatever it is you guys want to do. But just since we mentioned the personality styles, I just want to give a quick brief down of what the Gary Smalley ones are, because I find that if you want to find them, they're under his, he has a marriage and therapy thing. I don't know what it's called, marriage retreats. But
we'll put a link on the blog. How's that sound?
Oh, good. Okay. I was going to try to write it down.
Okay. Well, that's all you. The first one is Lion, and that's the one that I believe that I am. That's the born leader, the motivator, the driven, go-get-em personality that tends to be overbearing and pushy and controlling because they're not noticing it. They're motivated by success and accomplishments, that kind of thing. The next personality is the Otter, which is just the life of the party. They're the fun person that you always want to be around, but you probably don't want to delegate a lot of responsibilities to them.
It won't get done.
Right. The Beaver is that great organizer, that very structured personality. They're the person that can get everything in complete order for you. One of the big problems with them is they don't function very well if things are out of order.
A little bit more task-oriented, aren't they?
Right. And the last one is the Golden Retriever, which is your loyal friend, will do anything for you, and sometimes will become a doormat if you take advantage of them. So to me, that's the simplest of all the different ones that are out there, and it's kind of fun, too, because you have the little animals, and we're, like Nicole had mentioned, sometimes we're a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I find myself to be a little bit of lion and none of anything else.
Well, it's funny because one of my greatest fears is being taken advantage of. So,
well, there you go.
Goes hand in hand.
But what I found is that we don't control which one we are. We're kind of born with a certain type, certain personality.
Right.
Right. But we can control how we communicate with others. And this is something that I continue to learn. And especially as a teacher and a coach, I realize that motivating people is not so much dependent on how good I am, but it's understanding where they're at. And, those words of affirmation, and I kind of almost like make fun of that a little bit on the cover of my book, that, positive post-it notes and words of affirmation don't really, the real measure of happiness is the distance between what you want out of life and what you have. And that all that other stuff, you can say it all day long. It doesn't necessarily, if you still don't have what it is you want out of life, you're not going to be happy. But getting there, those other things can be strategies to help you get there. And the communication styles specifically are very important to help you to build relationships. And sometimes it's just forcing yourself to get out of your box, like you mentioned that you did this weekend.
It's definitely about doing something more, doing something different, or working on who you are and continuing to grow and help other people along the way. Because I think when we're helping other people, it's easier to find our own happiness because we're helping fill somebody else's bucket.
Well, I agree with that. I also think that we negate a lot of happiness in our life by having certain expectations for people instead of accepting them like they are. So that brings a lot of stress into our life if we want somebody to be a certain way and they're not, they're this way. And so I think once we can accept people exactly where they are, then we are able to influence and help them maybe to be where we feel like they should be.
And that's a really big deal. And you had shared briefly with us during the break about a communication strategy that you saw that was pretty interesting. We have a couple minutes left. Would you like to share that?
I'd love to. This is Dr. Emoto. He recently passed away, but he was a Japanese scientist, and he believed that, in fact, he photographed flash frozen water droplets that had been exposed to certain words or certain environments, and you could see in the photographs of the water crystals either a beautiful symmetrical shape that would correspond with, say, a word like happiness, or a very disfigured, discolored shape that would correspond with a word like hate. But his name is Dr. Emoto, E-M-O-T-O, and I would encourage anyone to look him up and look at the work that he's done, because his theory was we are so much water in our bodies and in our lives, and the same effect that the negativity has on the water droplets is also shown in people.
So finding our happiness is definitely about looking for happiness and putting ourselves in the way of happiness.
Yes. And then John spoke earlier at the very beginning about sometimes you're a little hard on yourself. I think that we need to really take responsibility to be very kind to ourselves. And so toward that end, I use affirmations almost every day. Yeah. I'm beautiful, bountiful, blissful, and blessed.
Well, one of the things you said in the very beginning in your intro was that you had worked on yourself and you had gotten to that point. And I think that we all need to continue to work on ourselves. And this stuff that we touched on today we barely scratched the surface. And we do workshops where we get deep with all of these things. And I recommend that you take some time and you understand your circles of influence. You understand about motivations, love languages. You figure out personality studies. You dive in, find a workshop. You could join us at one of ours. Whatever it is, just do the work and join us next time at Finding Your Happiness.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming out tonight. Mary, well, as always, Nicole is great.
Check us out on Facebook as well. We're posting daily and making sure that there's something that you can take a look at. And it's a great way to connect with us, Finding Your Happiness on Facebook. And
the show can be downloaded at johnpolish.com. I just want to thank you guys. Good night and God bless.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.